Hi everyone, Vanman here. In the previous video, we took part in a Poliwag Battle Royale, pitting Poliwag, Poliwhirl, and Poliwrath together in a head-to-head race to see who could complete Pokemon Red and Blue the fastest, with Poliwag boasting a strong A-tier finish, and Poliwhirl and Poliwrath both placing comfortably in the S-tier. For this video, however, I thought it might be time for a change of pace, because today, we're aiming to see just how fast we can beat the game with just a Ditto. Now, of all the Pokemon in Gen 1 that could possibly be labeled a gimmick Pokemon, Ditto absolutely takes the cake. Ditto, after all, has exactly one battle strategy, and that is, hope that your opponent's first Pokemon is a good one, because that's what you're stuck with whether you like it or not. And the reason for that is because the only move that Ditto can learn either by level up or by TM is Transform, which is a move that turns the user into a copy of the opponent. However, that's not actually the whole story, because Transform comes with a couple interesting quirks. First of all, when Ditto transforms into the opposing Pokemon, Ditto does not retain its own stats, but rather copies the opponent's. With the exception of HP, you get to keep that. So what this functionally means is that training to a higher level accomplishes virtually nothing apart from giving Ditto more HP to survive the opponent's attacks for longer. Because even if a level 100 Ditto transforms into a level 2 Caterpie, that Ditto will still have all the stats of only a level 2 Caterpie. Secondly, when Ditto transforms, each of the opponent's moves that Ditto copies only has 5 power points, so you had better pray that those few power points will be enough to knock out the entire team. And what's more, Ditto has abysmal base stats, hosting exactly 48 in every metric, meaning that we will likely move second in most of the battles due to poor speed, and then be hit for heavy damage before we have the opportunity to transform in the first place. So needless to say, because of the unique manner in which Ditto operates in combat, this run, probably more than any other, will require us to adapt our strategy for literally every battle. But hey, for a Pokemon whose entire aesthetic is adaptation, I'd say that's only fitting. The full rule set for this run is in the description below, but in summary, I can only use Ditto in battle with no battle items, I can't use any glitches or RNG manipulation, I must save before boss battles and then reset if I lose, and finally, Ditto's placement in the tier ranking will be determined by the real-world time spent completing the game while playing at 4 times speed. As a challenge for the viewer, everyone comment down below your prediction for Ditto's final runtime. And finally, in addition to commenting, if you enjoy what I do and want to help me continue to provide you with quality Pokemon content, please give the video a like, and subscribe and ring the bell so you're always up to date on the newest videos. And consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Thank you so much for your support. We begin the run by altering the game to replace the Squirtle starter with Ditto, causing the rival to choose Bulbasaur. Upon acquiring Ditto, I named it Optimus because, well, since Ditto is a literal transformer, I thought it only appropriate. To kick off the initial rival battle, as will be a running theme during this playthrough, we only have one option on turn 1 of the fight, which is to become a copy of Bulbasaur. And in an amazing stroke of luck due to getting 2 critical hits, and due to Bulbasaur using an inordinate amount of growls, we actually ended up taking the victory, even in spite of losing a turn to transform, and in spite of running out of both tackle and growl power points and eventually having to resort to struggle. Then, after defeating the rival, we immediately head north to Viridian Forest, where we begin the Herculean task that is our pre-Brock training. And at least for now, I decide to play it as safe as I can, and begin by knocking out only Wild Metapod and Kakuna that only know Harden and therefore can't attack. So in each battle, all we have to do is transform, use up all 5 Harden power points, then use Struggle until we get the KO. Now, you might be thinking, Viridian Forest and the routes leading up to it are native to a whole host of other wild Pokemon besides Metapod or Kakuna, why can't you battle them as well? Well, the answer is, because we copy the opponent's stats upon transformation, we are by no means guaranteed victory in any of those fights. And in this run, we absolutely cannot afford to black out because that would deplete us of a highly valuable resource, money. You see, a very important aspect of Ditto's training will very soon be to use potions instead of healing at the Poké Center, but the problem is that the Viridian City Mart does not sell potions, and it turns out that the first mart that does sell potions is the one in Pewter City, functionally meaning that we have to clutch onto our money very tightly until we eventually make it to Pewter City, at which point we can spend it all. However, there's just one problem, which is that there is exactly one mandatory trainer with a single Weedle standing in our way between Viridian Forest and Pewter City, meaning that we have to train to a high enough level to defeat him before we can afford to spend any of our money whatsoever. Eventually though, we do knock out enough Wild Metapod and Kakuna to make it to level 8, where I deemed it likely that we would defeat him. And in this case, I actually decided to waste all of our Transform power points to go into the fight with Struggle from the beginning. And fortunately, the enemy Weedle is weak enough that it goes down in 3 hits on a first attempt, even in spite of Struggle's 50% recoil damage. So now, we head straight to Pewter City where we spend all our money on potions, and now that our HP is high enough to reliably knock out Pokemon besides Metapod or Kakuna, we head into Viridian Forest forest and train via transforming into the wild Pokemon and knocking them out with their own attacking moves. Then once we make it to level 12, we implement an extremely useful strategy, which is to blackout train against a junior trainer in the Pewter Gym. What this means is that we can transform into the Diglett, reliably knock it out with Scratch, and then deliberately lose to the Sandshrew only to come back and repeat the process. And luckily, we don't even lose any money in the exchange either, because we were careful to spend it all prior to the fight. So using this method, we quickly level up all the way to level 16 before we finally knock out the Sandshrew as well. Then after that, we head back to Viridian Forest to take out the 2 optional bug catchers, then back to Route 22 to take out Rival 1A, then back up to Route 2 to train against wild Pokemon yet again. Also, it is worth noting here that most Pokemon that require pre-Brock training would actually prefer to train in Viridian Forest rather than Route 2, simply because the average experience yield in Viridian Forest is slightly higher. But here, we actually want to train on Route 2 simply because Metapod and Kakuna take so long to knock out that in Ditto's case we actively want to avoid them. So, after spending a full 42 minutes grinding all the way up to level 19, I decide to go ahead and try our hand at Brock, against whom there are 2 strategies, which are to transform into Geodude or to struggle and pray. In our first attempt we go with the former option, and it quickly becomes apparent just how unviable that is, because Geodude's attack is so weak and its defense is so strong that each tackle, and also each struggle after we run out of tackles, only deals 1 damage per attack, meaning that the recoil from struggle is mathematically guaranteed to get us down to red health before we even get to the Onix. So obviously in this fight it doesn't take long for the Onix to finish us off. So then we head back down to Viridian Forest to find 10 more Metapod or Kakuna to waste our transform power points, and then come back to face Brock again, this time using the struggle strategy. And this time around you can already see that struggle is dealing way more damage, thanks to Optimus's far superior attack stat in comparison to Geodude's, and we make it to Onix at a respectable 29 HP, which is good news because that means, considering that Onix only has around 40 HP, it is mathematically possible for us to win, as long as Onix goes for a sufficient number of turns without dealing any damage via Screech or missing with Tackle. Well, in this fight, things actually start out pretty well because Onix does indeed Screech a couple times, but then the payback from Bite is more than enough to knock us out. However, I figured at this point that we might just be able to eke out the victory with slightly better luck, so we reset and try again at the same level a few more times, but in every attempt we just hemorrhaged too much damage from either Bide or Tackle to finish the job. So eventually I just bit the bullet and decided to grind to 1 higher level, after which we yet again had to find 10 more Metapod or Kakuna to waste our transform power points, then come back and try Brock at level 20. Well, this time the higher level allows us to get past Geodude and make it to Onix at a much higher 31 HP, but then Onix's eventual Bide once again knocks us out. However, in the next attempt, although Geodude does use more tackles this time around, resulting in us going into Onix at only 25 HP, Onix fortunately decides to wait until the very end of the fight to use its Bide, allowing a couple final struggles to knock it out before it has the chance to retaliate, winning us the Boulder Badge at just over a full hour. Then up next, we finally make our way across Route 3, and as if to serve no purpose other than to prove my earlier point about the necessity for Ditto to adapt its strategy for every single fight, the very first bug catcher opens with a Caterpie, which we successfully manage to knock out with 5 tackles, but then we have to use 5 string shots against Weedle, who poisons us with Poison Sting in the meantime, thus causing us to hemorrhage too much damage and we black out. So in the next attempt, we actually have to open by using up all our string shot power points against the initial Caterpie, thus giving the Weedle's Poison Sting less time to accumulate damage while we use struggle against it. And indeed, this time we do manage the victory, and yes, as seemingly innocuous as that one interaction may be on the surface, as you will soon see for yourself, that battle is just a microcosm of how this entire run is destined to go. So then, although every other battle on Route 3 we manage to win handily, we still waste a lot of time, because after every fight we have to trek back to the Poké Center to heal. The reason being that I'm trying my absolute hardest to save all my potions for later in the run when they're absolutely necessary. And in addition to the Poké Center, we also make a pit stop at the Mart to spend our prize money on yet more potions, just in case we black out later. So then after Route 3 comes Mount Moon, during which there are only 2 mandatory battles, the first of which we win handily because the opponent opens with Rattata, which is a totally serviceable Pokemon to transform into, but then the super nerd guarding the fossils opens with Grimer, and this battle actually represents an interaction that will come up a lot in this run, which is that Grimer only knows 2 moves, Pound and Disable, one of which is a reasonably powerful move, and the other of which is totally useless, which wouldn't be a problem if we had more power points, but we only have 5, meaning that once we run out of pounds, we have to spend a full 5 turns doing nothing just to have the opportunity to resume attacking with struggle. Now, in this case, fortunately we spend those 5 do-nothing turns against Voltorb, who is so weak that it can't really punish us, but then the Koffing's attack and defense are so strong that Struggle isn't enough to take it down before it knocks us out. Now, ordinarily, I would just accept the blackout and gain the experience, except that in this case, I didn't really want to waste all that time trekking through the cave again. So instead, we just reset and try one more time. But alas, in the next 2 attempts, Koffing brings us to the same fate. So prior to the next attempt, we walk along the cave floor to waste all of our transform power points, then use a potion to heal back up, and try to take down the Grimer, Voltorb, and Koffing with Struggle, which we actually managed to do on the first attempt at just 8 health remaining, allowing us to make it to Cerulean City at 1 hour and 13 minutes. Hey, only 13 minutes to get through Mount Moon? You know what? As long as it took to get past Brock, I'll take it. But now, this next portion of the run represents a long-standing problem that Ditto will face throughout the entire rest of the playthrough. And that is, although I haven't yet proven this, my strong speculation is that Ditto will need to be at level 100 in order to beat the game. And unfortunately, the way the math works out is that the total experience yield of every trainer in the entire Kanto region isn't even close to sufficient to get Ditto to level 100, which is really unfortunate considering that the experience yield of trainer battles is so much greater than that of wild Pokemon battles. So because of that, we're going to need to find a clever method of racking up experience as efficiently as possible. And fortunately for us, there is such a method: blackout training. Now, wait a minute, I hear you asking. Didn't you already do that against a junior trainer in the Pewter Gym? Well, yes, but so far in the entire history of this channel, he is the only trainer against whom that training method has been necessary or even useful. But with Ditto, I made it our mission to find as many opportunities to blackout train as possible, the first of which was against the Pewter Gym trainer, and the second of which is against the swimmer in the Cerulean Gym. Because at our level, Horsey's Bubble, followed by Struggle once Bubble is depleted, is enough to take out the opposing Horsey, but not enough to take out the Shelter, allowing us to treat the swimmer like a recapitulation of the junior trainer, bringing us to level 24 before we were finally able to knock out the Shelter as well. Then up next, not wanting to resign myself to training in the wild again just yet, I decided to attempt Rival 2, which is a double-edged sword considering that Pidgeotto is definitely the rival strongest Pokemon, so we would rather transform into it than anything else. But because it outspeeds and we have to waste a turn on the transformation, that leaves it not 1 but 2 windows of opportunity to use Sand Attack before we even have time to get in the first hit. So our strategy in this fight is to actually open with a few Sand Attacks of our own to prevent the opposing Pidgeotto from doing the same. But it turns out that the enemy Pokemon ironically seem to have no problem at all landing their own hits in spite of the Sand Attack, and we get taken out. In the next attempt, however, the Sand Attack strategy does pan out just fine, because Pidgeotto only gets us to about half health before going down, after which our reasonably high speed and attack, coupled with the normal same type attack bonus, make quick work of the rest of the team, even in spite of resorting to a couple struggles against Bulbasaur. Then our trek across Nugget Bridge is not too incredibly painful, simply because all of the trainers do lead with Pokemon that are capable of knocking out their teams, especially considering that all of the trainers are programmed to attack randomly, which is obviously no match for a real-world player who attacks with purpose, although it does take quite a while to get through simply because each battle is still won by such a narrow margin that we have to head back to the Poké Center to heal after literally every battle. And yes, even though we have accumulated quite a few potions so far, again, I'm making it a point to save them for later. Then after completing Nugget Bridge, we attempt Misty, but here's the problem. Her opening Staryu is simply not in a position to defeat both her Staryu and her Starmie, simply because the Staryu's 2 moves, Tackle and Water Gun, both deal very little damage. Water Gun because they resist the attack, and Tackle because Misty likes to use X-Defend on her Pokemon. So we attempt Misty several times, and I even eventually come up with the strategy of using Tackle until such time as she uses X-Defend, at which point we transition into Water Gun. But alas, Starmie's enormous special stat is just too formidable, and we can never get past her defenses. So because of that, it's clear now that Misty is just not meant to be, and we abandon that plan and head south to the SSN. Now at this point, we have run out of transform power points, meaning that struggling against Rival 3 is now an option. But in the battle it turns out that even though the enemy Pokemon did attack us a couple times, it was clear at this point that we simply did not have enough HP to survive enough recoil to take out the entire team. In fact, it was at this moment that I realized a crucial element of completing any Ditto run, which is that defeating an entire team using exclusively Struggle is only even theoretically possible if the user has greater than half as much HP as the total HP of the entire opposing team. If the user has half as much HP or less, recoil is guaranteed to knock out the user, even if the opponent never deals damage a single time. So upon this realization, we instead head back up to the Poké Center to restore our transform power points so we can attempt to win with Pidgeotto. Well, it turns out that in this particular fight, we have 10 power points between Pidgeotto's 2 attacking moves, Gust and Quick Attack, and using those moves, the opening Pidgeotto is a 4-shot, Raticate is a 3-shot, Kadabra is a 2-shot, and Ivysaur is a 4-shot, for a total of 13, which means that our only 2 paths to victory are either to get extremely good critical hit luck, or to take sufficiently little damage from the opponent such that struggle is enough to finish the job. However, as you can see from this fight, neither of those scenarios came anywhere close to happening. Then in the next attempt, we do get Ivysaur down to a sliver with 0 critical hits before recoil damage gets the better of us. But then in the final attempt, after setting up Sand Attack on Pidgeotto, we get a critical hit making Pidgeotto a 2-shot. Then as we whittle down the rest of the team and go into Ivysaur, we have 3 quick attacks remaining, after which the first quick attack does about a quarter, the second quick attack brings it into yellow, and then our final power point gets a critical hit to finish the job. So now that we've defeated Rival 3 and completed the SSN mission, now are we ready for Misty? Well, we've got 5 more HP at our disposal than last time. Let's see if that makes a difference. Well, it turns out that the secret to winning this fight is actually exactly the same as it was for the rival, which is just to reset until we get enough critical hits, which in this case, because critical hits in Gen 1 bypass stat modifications, have the added benefit of getting around Misty's X defense. Well, in the first attempt, it seems that our critical hit luck is still on a roll, because we get one against the Staryu and another against the Starmie, but even that still isn't enough. However, in the very next attempt, we get even luckier with a total of 3 critical hits for the knockout, winning us the Cascade badge. Then up next we head to face Lieutenant Surge, but I think I may have been a little overzealous in this decision because I had forgotten that Surge's opening Voltorb has absolutely abysmal attack, making its tackles almost useless, and we don't even get past Voltorb in the first attempt. Then in the next several attempts we rely on Screech against Voltorb and Pikachu to make the tackles more effective, but then every time we get to Raichu we've sustained too much damage to get the win before Raichu knocks us out. So it's clear that we're not yet ready for Surge, so we instead battle the gym trainers for quick experience, in addition to the abundance of trainers on Route 11 just east of Vermilion City, all of whom we defeat easily, fortunately with one exception, this engineer with 2 Magnemites and a Magneton. And the reason that I say that's fortunate is because we found yet another trainer against whom we can blackout train, because the opening Magnemite is strong enough to consistently take out the first 2 Magnemites, but not the Magneton, allowing us to use that one trainer to train all the way up to level 35 before we face Lieutenant Surge yet again. And this time around, the fight goes a lot smoother because although our attacks are not any more potent than they were before, due to our stats being identical, at least now our HP is higher, allowing us to tank the onslaught from Raichu more effectively and knock it out with a few sonic booms, winning us the Thunder Badge. Then after defeating Lieutenant Surge, there's nowhere else to go besides east of Cerulean City across Route 9, but here the very first trainer on that route already presents us with a huge problem, because her team of Oddishes and Bellsprouts is impossible to get through with the Oddishes moveset of Absorb, Stun Spore, and Poison Powder. So because of that, I don't even attempt the rest of the fight and we just reset from the start, instead opting for the struggle method. So we then head just west of Cerulean City to Route 4 to waste all of our transform power points. However, we do slowly accrue damage from the wild Pokemon as we do so, which by the way, is one very important reason that I so highly prioritized reserving as many potions as possible, just in case we ran into situations like this one that required us to restore our health but not our power points. So then, after we spend all our transform power points, we potion up and then use struggle to get past the last with only 3 health remaining. Then, after making it across Route 9 to Mount Moon, we have to waste even more time because I so highly prioritized spending all my money on potions that I didn't even buy repels. So not only do we have to deal with tons of wild encounters, we also have to dig back out of the cave after every fight to restore our HP at the Poké Center before we then walk all the way through the cave to the next trainer in the lineup. And of the 5 mandatory battles in the cave, only the first one required more than a single attempt because the initial Cubone's Bone Club wasn't strong enough and we had to growl against the Slowpoke. But then in the next attempt we growled against the Cubone to mitigate its Bone Club and then struggled against the Slowpoke for the win. Then in the next battle, Slowpoke's Headbutt is enough to take out Slowpoke, then struggling with Oddish is enough to take out Oddish and Bulbasaur, then amusingly the self-destructing hiker that's such a brick wall for so many weaker Pokemon is a complete joke because all we have to do is spam Defense Curl and just wait for both Geodudes and the Graveler to self-destruct, which we're able to survive, and then finally, the last trainer's Meowth easily takes care of Meowth, Oddish, and Pidgey. Then after escaping the cave and making our way to Celadon City, our shopping errands are just a little bit more involved this time than usual, because in this run, we buy one of each of all the vending machine drinks to exchange for TMs from this NPC, then pick up another gift TM from this NPC, then sell those TMs for money. money, which we then spend entirely on super potions. Then after completing our shopping errands, the choice is to face either Erica or Rival 4, and in this case, the correct move is Erica for a couple reasons. The first reason is that we are now at a very respectable level 37, meaning that our stats and HP are now high enough that we can do some very quick and efficient struggle training against the Celadon gym trainers using our accumulated potions to restore health between each fight. And the second reason is because of how Erica's AI works in Gen 1. You see, almost all the boss trainers in Gen 1 have what's called good AI, which means that if possible, they will always select a move that is super effective against their opponent. But because it's Gen 1 we're talking about here, it comes with a couple quirks. First of all, the AI will not consider whether the selected move will deal damage, so if a status move meets the type requirement, it's fair game. Also, the super effective messaging system only takes into account one of the opponent's types if it's dual typed. So, for example, the AI thinks that poison moves are super effective against dual grass and poison type Pokemon, even though they're actually neutrally effective. The result of all this is that Erica's Victory Bell and Vileplume will both always spam Poison Powder against a grass and poison type Pokemon, which Optimus will be if it transforms into Victory Bell. But because Victory Bell is itself a poison type, it can't actually be poisoned, rendering the enemy moves completely useless. So that sounds like Erica would be a free win for Ditto, right? Well, not exactly, because in the fight, Erica uses a super potion on Victory Bell, meaning that the 10 power points we have between Razor Leaf and Wrap aren't enough to take it out, and we have to finish it off with Struggle, after which we spend the rest of the fight sustaining too much recoil damage and get knocked out. Then in the second attempt, Victory Bell manages to outspeed and inflict heavy damage with Wrap before we even have the opportunity to attack at all. Then in attempt number 3, we get terrible luck and miss Razor Leaf several times so as not to knock out the Victory Bell before we run out of power points. But then finally in the fourth attempt, we're able to make it to Tangela with a couple Wrap power points left, allowing us to put it in the Poison Powder Wrap lock until it goes down, after which we then have plenty of HP remaining to struggle down the Vileplume without fear of the recoil, winning us the Rainbow Badge. So then up next, we head to Lavender Town to face Rival 4, and even though we are significantly overleveled at this point, we still don't have enough HP for the struggle strategy to be viable. So just like in the previous rival battle, we need Pidgeotto to carry us the entire way through. Except, there's a bit of a problem, because this time our move pool is even worse than in the previous rival battle due to the addition of Whirlwind, which has no effect in battle, thus causing us to have to waste an extra 5 turns doing nothing if we ever get to a point where we have to resort to struggle. So in the first attempt, our plan is to knock out the Pidgeotto as quickly as possible with Gust, then Sand Attack the Gyarados so that it hopefully continues to miss while we chip it away. And in the battle, we do get a critical hit against the Pidgeotto, allowing us to go into Gyarados at full health, but then Gyarados promptly spites the Sand Attack and knocks us out. Then in the next attempt, Gyarados again spites the Sand Attack and gets us into red health, allowing the next Growlithe to get the knockout. Then after yet a couple more attempts, I soon realized that we simply don't yet have enough HP to survive the onslaught, because even if Gyarados misses an attack or two, Pidgeotto and Growlithe can still rack up enough damage to get the job done. So instead, I figured since we're going to have to train up against all the Kanto trainers eventually anyway, now's as good a time as any to do just that. So we head to the routes immediately north, west, and south of Lavender Town to knock out the trainers there, and luckily even managed to find a trainer with 2 Grimers and a Muck, against whom we could blackout train before defeating him on the 5th attempt. Then we head over to the Fighting Dojo and the Rocket Hideout to clear out the trainers there, and throughout this entire process, one thing became abundantly clear, which is that Ditto tends to have a far easier time knocking out the root trainers than the boss trainers, simply because the power level of the root trainers teams are typically far more balanced, whereas the boss trainers tend to lead with a worse Pokemon and then build up to their ace. So, for example, a Rocket Trainer's Rattata can easily sweep the team with Hyper Fang, or a Black Belt's Machop can easily sweep the team with Low Kick, but the rival's Pidgeotto is going to have a much steeper hill to climb against Gyarados, and so on. Additionally, I also find it extremely amusing that during this grand training session, I actually had to make my game clock smaller to accommodate the extra digit in the hours column. So then, as the fruit of all that experience, Optimus has now gained 8 levels up to level 47, but more importantly, 24 extra HP. So now, let's head back to Rival 4 and see if that makes a difference. Well, in the first attempt, Pidgeotto luckily ends up being 2-shot thanks to a critical hit, after which we spam Sand Attack against Gyarados like last time, but then Gyarados gets pretty much the best luck ever because it lands a Leer, lands a Bite, lands another Bite, lands a Dragon Rage, then misses a Bite, but then after 5 Sand Attacks, still lands an already 80% accurate Hydro Pump. Then in the next attempt, we managed to get to Gyarados in the green, and this time the sand attack plan pans out a lot better because Gyarados only lands a single bite to bring us into yellow, after which I realized that we don't have enough power points for the rest of the team, meaning we'll have to use up the useless whirlwind power points against Growlithe so we can eventually struggle. Then once our whirlwind power points are depleted, we do manage to use our remaining quick attacks to knock out the Growlithe and Kadabra, but then the recoil damage from struggle knocks us out. But now it was at this point that I realized my mistake, because what we need to do is use our whirlwind power points against Gyarados, who is at least in theory the Pokemon who is least likely to damage us thanks to sand attack. So after a couple more attempts, we do finally get a run in which we go into Gyarados in the green, who then never lands a single hit, allowing us to spend all of our whirlwind power points and knock out the rest of the team with quick attack and struggle. So then after defeating the rival, we again easily sweep our way through the trainers in the tower, including all the optional channelers, considering that our higher level makes our Nightshades far more potent than theirs. Then after acquiring the Pokeflute, we clear out all the trainers in Cycling Road, including a couple trainers that luckily took several attempts to defeat, allowing us to blackout train against them. Then upon arriving in Fuchsia City, we head straight to Safari Zone where we pick up all the items to sell for more potion money, including the vitamins, which are now useless because we've battled so many trainers so far that our stat experience is maxed out. Then we head straight to the Fuchsia Gym, where we clear out the gym trainers there as well, and then face Koga. So our plan going into this fight is to use Tackle, Smog, and Sludge to take out the Coughing, Muck, and Second Coughing, hopefully without accruing too much damage along the way, then use Smokescreen against Wheezing to lower its accuracy and cause its Self Destruct to miss. However, you can see how well that pans out because each attack against Coughing is only doing a blip. And to add insult to injury, Coughing loves to use Smokescreen of its own to force us to use Struggle much sooner than we would like. So in the next attempt, we instead open with Smokescreen against Coughing to hopefully prevent it from doing the same against us. But that wasn't working either, so we promptly abandon that plan and head straight over to Sylph to clear out the trainers there for more experience. Granted, that definitely was a mistake, because I should have trained at Sylph before attempting Koga anyway, given that I knew I was going to eventually train at Sylph regardless. And it's also worth noting here that partway through our Sylph training, I made the determination that we are finally at a high enough level to outspeed and one-shot most any trainer Pokemon that comes our way with Struggle, allowing us to defeat the enemy teams much more quickly. And by the way, remember all those times earlier in the run when I was so conservative with my potions? Well, this is the principal reason why, because using Struggle to gain experience in the late game would be unviable otherwise, and it would take much more time to complete. So then, after we clear out Sylph, I'm fairly confident that Koga is still a no-go. So instead, we head to face Rival 5, and the strategy here is exactly the same as it was for Rival 4. That is, attack the Pidgeot to take it down as quickly as possible, then sand attack Gyarados to prevent it from inflicting damage while we expend our Whirlwind power points, then wing attack and quick attack the rest of the way. Also, I made a slight tweak to the strategy in the sense that I just decided up front to reset the battle outright if the enemy Pidgeot ever landed a sand attack of its own. So from now on, when I refer to the next attempt, what I mean is the next attempt in which Pidgeot didn't use sand attack. Well, in the first attempt, things were initially going according to plan because Gyarados only got us into yellow, after which we land 2 successive critical hits to one-shot both Growlithe and Alakazam. But then against Venusaur, a mix of poison damage and recoil damage is just barely enough to knock us out. Then in the next 6 attempts, Gyarados insists on spiting the sand attack and knocking us out, and then in the next attempt after that, a potion from the rival in conjunction with 0 critical hits leaves us with too few power points and recoil damage does us in. And then unfortunately, after several more attempts of our health being whittled away either by Gyarados or recoil damage, I eventually bit the bullet and decided to go out and train yet again. And this here is why my earlier decision to save all those potions really came in handy, because now we can head east of Fuchsia City and use Struggle to sweep our way through the abundance of trainers inhabiting the long route stretching from Fuchsia City all the way back up to Lavender Town, all the while utilizing our abundance of potions to eliminate the need to ever backtrack to a Poké Center, augmenting our level from 61 to 66, but more importantly, our HP from 175 to 191. So now, let's head back to Rival 5 and see if he goes a little easier this time. Well, in the first attempt, we get a run that looks exactly like many of the previous ones did in the form of Gyarados powering through the sand attack, but then finally in the next attempt, Gyarados does land a single attack, after which Growlithe is one-shot with the critical hit, then Alakazam goes to yellow health and then recovers, but then goes down to yet another crit, leaving us with plenty of HP to struggle against Venusaur for the victory. However, we then hit yet another brick wall that completely stops us in our tracks, because this next battle against Giovanni is the absolute worst. Ironic, I know, considering that for most Pokemon he's such a joke that I don't even bother commentating the fight, but in this case, his opening Pokemon is Nidorino, with a moveset of Horn Attack, Focus Energy, Poison Sting, and Fury Attack. And even though Horn Attack and Fury Attack can reliably take out the Nidorino and the Kangaskhan, Rhyhorn's defense is so enormous that each attack is only doing a blip, and it's immediately clear that no amount of critical hits or poison damage is going to take it down. So needless to say, we swiftly abandon that plan and go out to train yet again. Fortunately, there are just a handful of trainers on Route 18 west of Fuchsia and Route 9 east of Cerulean that we skipped that we can go back and knock out, again using the struggle potion strategy, but unfortunately, that still doesn't put us anywhere near the capacity to defeat either Giovanni or Koga, and the rest of the game is walled off behind those two trainers. Without defeating Koga, we can't use Surf to access the rest of the map, and without defeating Giovanni and completing the Silphco mission, we can't enter the Saffron Gym. So now, for the first time since Viridian Forest, it's time to grind against wild Pokemon. So to do so, we head over to Route 18 because that's the route that gives the greatest experience yield in the portion of the map that we have access to. And at this point, I resolve to just keep struggle training until I run out of potions, which after half an hour brings us to level 72 and 212 HP, which actually turns out to be a great number because 212 is just over half the total HP of Koga's entire team, which means that now, all that's necessary to defeat him is to keep resetting until none of Koga's Pokemon attack a single time, which is actually more probable than you might think, given his X attacks, smoke screens, minimizes, and disables, which do nothing against a struggling Pokemon anyway. Well, in the initial attempt, the first Coughing does hit us with a single Smog for almost no damage, after which I decided to continue the fight just in case there was any wiggle room for our recoil. But it turns out that there's not any wiggle room because Koga didn't attack for the entire rest of the battle, and our last struggle still knocked us out. So that essentially means that our plan is to continue the fight if the enemy Pokemon have not yet dealt any damage, and immediately reset if any Pokemon deals any damage whatsoever. Well, using that plan, we incurred a total of 11 failed attempts, but then finally on attempt number 12, we two-shot the first Coughing with it using an X attack, two-shot the Muck with it using a minimize, one-shot the second Coughing, and then three-shot the Weezing while it spams X attack, winning us the Soul Badge with only 6 health remaining. And by the way, you remember when we earned the Rainbow Badge? Yeah, that was 4 hours ago. Just pause and let that resonate for a moment. But anyway, now that we have the Soul Badge, we're finally able to cross the ocean to Cinnabar Island, during which we again use the Struggle Potion strategy to clear out the trainers on Route 21, followed by all the trainers in the Pokemon Mansion, followed by all the trainers in the Cinnabar Gym, after which we face Blaine at level 75. Against Blaine, we initially try the Struggle strategy, and even though the Rapidash is not quite a one-shot, allowing it to retaliate with a Fire Spin, it's still nevertheless clear that Optimus does not have enough HP for the Struggle strategy to be even theoretically possible. So, we then go into the next attempt transforming into Growlithe, and our strategy is to set up with Agility to outspeed and also badge boost our attack and defense, and then hopefully Takedown will one-shot the entire team. Well, Takedown does indeed one-shot the Growlithe, but comes just shy of one-shotting the Ponyta, after which Blaine uses a Super Potion, which really doesn't bode well because that only augments the recoil damage that we incur from Takedown, and also waste our power points. So then Ponyta goes down in the next turn, but then 2 more Super Potions on the Rapidash put the battle out of reach, and we eventually get taken out. Then at that point, I resolved in all subsequent attempts to instead Leer the Rapidash so that Takedown would one-shot and not waste any more power points. Well, in the next attempt, we do indeed Leer the Rapidash, but the Rapidash's Growl again prevents the one-shot, and our efforts are ultimately thwarted once again. Then in the next several attempts, the Leers against the Rapidash worked just fine, but still none of the battles were going our way simply because the opening Growlithe would continue attacking during the Agility setup, allowing either Rapidash or Arcanine to knock us out during the Leer setup. So, what that means is that in order to win, we need a run in which Growlithe either uses Agility or Super Potion during the Agility setup so as to go into Rapidash at full health. Well, it took a couple more attempts for that exact sequence to happen, but Growlithe does eventually decide to cooperate and not inflict any damage, and in fact badge boosts our attack with a Leer so we can then one-shot the Ponyta. And then against Rapidash we come just shy of knocking it out, but a Super Potion from Blaine means that it can't attack and we knock it out with another Takedown. Then luckily Arcanine decides to cooperate as well by missing Takedown, followed by a total of 3 Roars which have no effect in battle. And fortunately we only have 1 Takedown power point left, meaning that we first have to chip away with Ember, but fortunately one of the Ember's crits, and although the Takedown leaves it surviving on a sliver, Arcanine then goes for a Takedown of its own and feints to recoil damage, winning us the Volcano Badge. Now, ordinarily, this is the point in the run in which most Pokemon would face Sabrina, but as of now, Sabrina is still walled off behind Giovanni, and unfortunately, Optimus's HP is still just shy of being able to support the recoil damage from Struggle. And we all know that transforming into Nidorino has no chance. So, still more training it is. Fortunately, we haven't yet tapped routes 19 and 20 just east of Cinnabar, so we clear out the trainers there, but unfortunately we're already at such a high level that all of those trainers only gain us one additional level. So we then head to the most efficient area on the entire map for training against wild Pokemon prior to Victory Road, and that is Pokemon Mansion. And so after about 20 minutes of grinding, we make it to level 81, at which point we use our last Hyper Potion, and then head back to Celadon City to restock. Also, it is worth noting here that until this point, I had simply been using the highest denomination of potion available at any given point in the game, starting with regular potions, then switching to super potions when they became available, then switching to hyper potions when they became available. However, while grinding in Pokemon Mansion, it was pointed out to me in my Twitch chat that vending machine drinks from the Celadon department store are actually far more money efficient per HP restored, the most efficient one being freshwater. So, after depleting our last hyper potion, we stock up entirely on freshwaters, after which we head back to Giovanni to attempt the fight again, hopefully for the last time. Well, in the battle, Nidorino was one-shot with struggle, Kangaskhanna's one-shot with struggle, Rhyhorn is two-shot with struggle with it using a horn attack, and finally Nidoqueen is just shy of being one-shot, but then Giovanni uses a guard spec, after which one more struggle gets the job done, leaving us at only 4 health to speak of. So then finally, after a full 8 hours, we complete the Silphco mission and gain access to the Saffron Gym, wherein we again use the struggle potion strategy, or I guess in this case the struggle freshwater strategy, to one-shot all the psychic trainers. Then, since struggle is a normal type move that can't hit ghosts, we have to use transform to take out the channelers, but just like in Lavender Tower from earlier, Nightshade makes those battles trivial. And then, obviously we're so overleveled that Sabrina herself is a cakewalk, and struggle outspeeds and one-shot every one of her Pokemon with ease, winning us the Marsh Badge. And so now that we've defeated all of the first 7 gym leaders, the doors to the Viridian Gym are now unlocked, and we head to face Giovanni. And after we knock out all the gym trainers for experience, we head into the fight at level 83. And at first we attempt to struggle everything, which doesn't exactly go according to plan, because Rhyhorn retaliates with a stomp, and Nidoqueen retaliates with a body slam, after which we faint to recoil damage. But it turns out that it actually wouldn't have mattered even if everything had gone totally optimally, because Optimus doesn't currently have enough HP at our level to sustain the recoil. But not only that, it was then immediately pointed out to me in my chat that even a level 100 Ditto would not have enough HP to make struggle possible, so that strategy is out the window, and it looks like we'll be defeating Giovanni with Rhyhorn. So in the next attempt, we transform into Rhyhorn, after which Rhyhorn opens with Tail Whip, dropping our defense but also badge boosting our attack, after which we take out the Rhyhorn in 4 attacks, followed by Dugtrio in only 1 attack. Then Nidoqueen goes down in 2 hits after a Tail Whip, and then Nidoking goes down in 2 hits as well. And because all the former Pokemon decided not to attack that much, and because our defense is so great, we go into the final Pokemon Rhydon in green health, who will always spam Fissure because of its good AI selecting its only ground type move. Well, against Rhydon, we use our final 2 Tail Whips to hopefully penetrate its massive defenses, and then use our final Fury attack. But then, in order to use Struggle, we have to waste our 5 Horn Drills, during which time one of Rhydon's Fissures finally lands and takes us out. Now, at this point, I was already brewing in my mind several ways to adapt my strategy for this fight, but before making another attempt, we instead just head back down to Pokemon Mansion to grind all the way up to level 88. And the reason I chose that number is because there are a total of 12 rare candies in the entire game, so stopping our training at level 88 would allow us to go into the Giovanni fight at level 99, considering that one of the rare candies is inaccessible until after defeating Giovanni, and then complete the Elite Four at level 100. And you know what? We're already at over 8 hours into the run, so I really don't think another 40 minutes of training is going to make a difference in Ditto's tier ranking. So we may as well just be at the highest level possible to maximize our chances. So now, after completing that training at over 9 hours on the real-time clock, I feed my 11 rare candies to Optimus, and we attempt Giovanni at level 99. And now, it's montage time, because spoiler alert, this fight was quite literally the worst fight in the entire game. Now, I'm not yet going to give away just how much time this took or how many attempts it required, but let's just say we really do have all the cards stacked against us here. Allow me to explain. First of all, we need to talk about how one-hit KO moves work. So, Rhyhorn knows a one-hit KO move called Horn Drill. Like all one-hit KO moves, it's 30% accurate, will always deplete the opponent's HP down to 0 if it connects, and can also never hit an opponent that outspeeds. So, the way the probability works is that any single one-hit KO move is unlikely to land, but if lots of one-hit KO moves are attempted in succession, one of them will probably connect at some point, which upon first blush actually bodes pretty well for us, because upon Optimus's transformation into Rhyhorn, we have 5 Horn Drill power points available, and if we use all 5 of them against the opposing Rhyhorn, there is only a 17% chance that none of them will connect, leaving us with a respectable 83% success rate in taking out the Rhyhorn using exclusively Horn Drill. But as you likely suspected, that's where the odds start tipping the other direction. because literally every Pokemon along the way presents us with its own unique set of challenges. For starters, although the initial Rhyhorn wasn't itself very threatening, remember we did still have a 17% failure rate for our Horn Drills to knock it out. Additionally, we actually want some of our Horn Drills to miss before the 4th or 5th one lands, because if we land a Horn Drill right away, that forces us to spend the remaining Horn Drills on other Pokemon later in the lineup that are more threatening. Then against the Dugtrio, because its good AI will cause it to always outspeed and use Dig on turn 1, I eventually came up with the strategy of using a preemptive turn 1 Horn Drill while it was underground, just so we could spin the power point, then take the damage from Dig, then attack with an actually useful move in retaliation. However, there are a couple problems with that. First of all, Giovanni could use a guard spec at any point, including while Dugtrio was underground, causing us to waste a Horn Drill power point. Secondly, our Fury attack against Dugtrio would one-shot, but only if it hit 5 times, and Stomp is a range to knock it out. So obviously if we didn't knock out the Dugtrio immediately, then it would go for another Dig, and we'd have to start the whole process back over again. Well, after many attempts of experimentation, we eventually settled on Stomp over Fury attack, and we eventually resigned ourselves to resetting if we didn't get the range on Stomp, simply because the extra damage from a second Dig would make it far more difficult to survive the struggle recoil later down the line. Then against Nidoqueen, its Poison Sting and Body Slam both have the potential to inflict status conditions, poison and paralysis respectively, that make the rest of the fight unwinnable. And just like Dugtrio, although at first we tried to power through the status conditions whenever they came up, eventually we again resigned ourselves to resetting if we ever became inflicted. Then against Nidoking, it too knows Poison Sting, which can poison, and additionally its damage dealing attacks are by far the most powerful of the entire team, making it very easy for Nidoking to put us out of struggle range against Rhydon. And then finally Rhydon turned out to be the biggest gatekeeper of them all, simply because Rhydon's defense is so massive that it takes approximately 10 turns to take it out, meaning that it has 10 opportunities to land its own one-hit KO move in the form of Fissure, leaving only a 2.8% chance of all of its attacks to miss in succession, meaning that even if we were guaranteed to make it to the Rhydon with no status conditions and enough HP to survive the struggle recoil, that would still leave us winning the fight at best 1 out of every 35 attempts. But as I've just demonstrated, making it to the Rhydon with no status conditions and enough HP was itself extremely unlikely. And for the icing on the cake, the very existence of Tail Whip from Rhyhorn and Nidoqueen make this fight an especially tense back and forth, because not only does Tail Whip badge boost our attack, allowing for a more favorable range against Dugtrio and allowing us to take out the Nidoqueen and Nidoking faster, it also badge boosts our speed, such that a total of 5 Tail Whips between Rhyhorn and Nidoqueen would cause us to outspeed the Rhydon, thus rendering its fissures ineffective. So eventually, after many attempts of experimentation, I decided that if Rhyhorn just so happened to use at least 3 Tail Whips before fainting to our Horn Drills, I would intentionally allow the Nidoqueen to survive as long as possible to try and get it to use Tail Whip twice more. However, as you can imagine, that plan was extremely difficult to execute, simply because that many defense drops made it almost impossible to survive the onslaught of attacks from Nidoqueen and Nidoking. So much so that in all of our attempts, we never once made it to Rhydon using this strategy. And not only that, the highest number of Tail Whips that we ever even managed to extract from the opponent was 4 anyway. So it seems at this point that the only way to win is to Horn Drill the Rhyhorn, get the one-shot range on Dugtrio, avoid the status conditions from Nidoqueen, survive the Nidoking with enough HP to tank the struggle recoil, and then finally dodge every single one of a long series of fissures from Rhydon. So let's bust out our calculator and see just how probable that entire sequence actually is. Well, we've already determined that landing at least one Horn Drill on the Rhyhorn is 83%. Then one-shotting the Dugtrio is admittedly much more difficult to calculate, but anecdotally I can say that it was about 1 in 4. And again, the next 2 variables are also much more difficult to calculate, but again, just speaking anecdotally, there were about 1 in 2 and 1 in 3 respectively. And finally, we already determined that the chance of surviving Rhydon is 2.8%. So, multiplying all those probabilities together gives us approximately a 1 in 1,000 chance to win each individual battle. And even if we're extremely generous and say that we can average 4 attempts per minute, well, let's just say it would make me feel better if I didn't think too much about how long that would take. So anyway, what is the ultimate result of all this? Well, on the 60th attempt, after hacking away at this for over half an hour, we finally got this beauty of a battle, because we managed to make it past the first 4 Pokemon in Yellow Health, and instead of narrating this next bit, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my live reaction for Rhydon. Oh, we're gonna get it? We're gonna get it? We can get this. Come on. One more! No! Do you see this? So yeah, that was disappointing. And not to mention, shortly thereafter, I had to make not only the game time clock, but also the real time clock smaller, again to accommodate the extra digit in the hours place. But then finally on attempt number 248, after almost another 2 hours of grinding, we got this glorious run. happened again. It fissured when it survived on a sliver. So yeah, that was disappointing. Okay, enough teasing, I promise. Finally, only 5 minutes later, after a grand total of 2 hours and 40 minutes on attempt number 259, we got a run in which every little piece fell into place. We start by spending 3 horn drill power points on Rhyhorn before the 4th one connects, then we use the 5th one against Dugtrio while it's underground, and then one-shot it with Stomp. We 2-shot Nidoqueen after a Tail Whip, we 2-shot Nidoking who only uses a Poison Sting and a Guard Spec, and then against Rhydon we use Tail Whip after which Giovanni uses a Guard Spec, so we instead then switch over to Fury Attack, and then once our power points are exhausted, we struggle and hope for the best, and here is my live reaction to that. Yes! Finally! We can breathe. But now's not the time to celebrate too much, we still have 5 battles left. And before we head to face the rival, just a quick point about the real-world time that I had invested into this project. I started this run at 10 AM on Saturday. I had carved out my entire evening to make sure I wouldn't need to be interrupted to do anything else, because I was determined to do this all in one sitting. Sure, I had taken some very short breaks along the way, but apart from that, I played continuously all day. And upon my defeat of Giovanni, it was approaching midnight. I was tired, my fingers hurt, my back hurt, my eyes hurt, but I'd be damned if I were to call it quits now. I didn't care how long it took. I was far too invested to give up. So now, as we head to face Rival 6, unlike the previous 2 rivals, our plan now is quite different than it was before, simply because Pidgeot no longer has access to Sand Attack. But it does, however, have access to Agility to badge boost our attack and defense. So our plan is to set up 3 Agilities against Pidgeot, followed by Wing Attack and Quick Attack on the rest of the team. And in the first attempt executing that plan, Pidgeot goes down in 3 hits after attacking us down to about 2/3 health. Then, although you might not think Rhyhorn would be such a great threat because its attack is so low, its defense is so high that it takes a full 5 hits to take it down, giving it lots of opportunity to chip away at our health. And on top of that, I realized in the middle of this fight that we're also priced into using all 5 useless Whirlwind power points against Rhyhorn as well, simply because we'll have to struggle at some point, and of all the Pokemon to Whirlwind against, Rhyhorn is the least threatening. However, in this fight, Rhyhorn still manages to get us down to red health, leading into Gyarados, who promptly knocks us out with Bite. So after that fight, it's now clear that we don't have nearly enough power points, and that our victory will depend on either getting excellent critical hit luck, or the rival opting for non-damage dealing moves such as Whirlwind and Horn Drill, or the rival missing with the various less than 100% accurate moves such as Fury Attack and Hydro Pump. Certainly doable, especially considering that Pidgeot's speed does bestow it with a reasonably high critical hit rate, so let's try again and see how it goes. Well, in the next attempt, we do get a critical hit against Pidgeot to knock it out in 2 hits instead of 3, and we go into Rhyhorn with slightly higher health this time. And at first, things seem to be going well because Rhyhorn opens by missing a few times while we deplete our Whirlwind power points, but we never once land a critical hit against Rhyhorn, still allowing it to bring us down into low yellow leading into Gyarados. Then Gyarados is again 2-shot with it using a Bite to bring us into red, and then Growlithe survives on a sliver and knocks us out with Takedown. Then in the 3rd attempt, Pidgeot does us a favor by using a couple Whirlwinds during the agility setup, and then going down to a single critical hit Wing Attack, after which we again deplete our Whirlwind power points against Rhyhorn, and then take it down on only 3 hits thanks to another crit, allowing us to go into Gyarados at far higher HP than usual. Then Gyarados is again 2-shot with it using a Hydro Pump that doesn't do much thanks to our badge boosted special, after which Quick Attack gets the favorable range on Growlithe to one-shot it unlike last time. Alright, first attempt at Alakazam. Here we go. Well, we obviously outspeed thanks to agility, and Quick Attack brings it down to red, but then thankfully Alakazam just recovers and then feints to another Quick Attack. Then finally Venusaur just decides to spam Growth the whole battle, and feints to a Quick Attack followed by 2 struggles for the win. And by the way, given our type resistance in conjunction with our badge boosted special, I don't think Venusaur had a reasonable chance to knock us out even if it had decided to attack. So I definitely think our victory was justified in that scenario. Well, okay then, 259 attempts at Giovanni, 3 attempts at the rival. I'll take it. But now, we move on to the Elite Four. And y'all, this above all else is the ultimate test of Ditto's strength, because inside Victory Road is the last rare candy to bring us all the way up to level 100. So that's it. There's no more training to be done. There's no extra moves we can learn. There's not even the dilemma of the struggle strategy versus the transform strategy, because the next 5 trainers in the game all have teams with too much total HP for a struggle victory to be mathematically possible. All we can do now is transform into the opponent's lead Pokemon and cross our fingers that will be enough to come out on top. So now, let's head into Lorelei's chamber and see how we fare. To start, Lorelei's lead Pokemon is Dewgong, with a moveset of Growl, Aurora Beam, Rest, and Takedown. And I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure what our game plan is here. In the first battle, we just spammed the attacking moves of Aurora Beam and Takedown, but Dewgong's high defensive stats coupled with its proclivity to use Rest mean that that tactic is not destined to work. Then in the second attempt, we open with Takedown, after which Dewgong rests back up to full, and then the next two takedowns knock it out thanks to a critical hit. Then we go for Aurora Beam on Cloyster despite the type resistance, simply because Cloyster's defense is so massive that Takedown would still end up dealing less damage, and Cloyster goes down in 4 hits, again thanks to a critical hit. Then our remaining 2 power points between Aurora Beam and Takedown are not enough to knock out the Slowbro, so we then have to use our Growl and Rest power points to use Struggle, which at this point is not actually viable because Slowbro, Jinx, and Lapras still have too much HP between them, as we can see here when we make it to Lapras but still end up fainting. However, even though that attempt was not successful, it still gave me all the information I need to realize our path to victory, because 1 critical hit will make Dewgong a 2-shot, and 2 critical hits will make Cloyster a 2-shot, and if that happens, we will have enough power points to knock out the Slowbro without resorting to Struggle, allowing us to rest back up to full against a Jinx to struggle down the Jinx and the Lapras. Additionally, I also came up with what we call in the business a big brain strat, because against the initial Dewgong, we can also spam either Growl or Rest until such time as it uses Takedown, therefore taking recoil damage and prompting it to use a Rest of its own, therefore preserving our own Takedown and Aurora Beam power points. Then in the third attempt, we got a run that we didn't win, but nevertheless indicated that victory against Lorelei is definitely within reach, because even with less than ideal critical hit luck against Dewgong and Cloyster, a few timely critical hits against Slowbro, Jinx, and Lapras allowed us to get Lapras down into the yellow before fainting. However, I will also say that that particular battle was actually one of the luckier Lorelei battles that we came across, because it actually turns out that Lorelei was second only to Giovanni for the most resets in the entire run. And the entire time that we were attempting this fight, I couldn't help but laugh at the irony that this battle would be completely trivial if only we had access to more power points, simply because none of Lorelei's Pokemon actually pose a threat, and literally the only thing preventing us from seeing the battle all the way through to the end is recoil damage, because otherwise we would be able to use as many Aurora Beams or Takedown as we needed and then rest up whenever necessary. But alas, instead we were resigned to a fate that looked like this. And in fact, it even got to the point where we recognized 3 different conditions that prompted a reset without even attempting the rest of the fight. And those are, if we didn't get at least 1 critical hit against the Dewgong, if the Dewgong rested a single time beyond the initial one that we wanted anyway, or if we ran out of power points against Slowbro. And given that Dewgong only has around a 13% critical hit rate, and given that we would need a bare minimum of 2 critical hits for victory to even be in sight, banking on those 2 critical hits alone leaves us with only around a 1.7% probability, not to mention all the other factors that have to go just right as well. So when all is said and done with, this battle, although not quite as contentious as the one against Giovanni, is only expected to go our way 1 out of every several hundred attempts. But indeed, after just over 2 hours, we do eventually reach attempt number 189, at which point just enough goes right to secure the victory. Because our first takedown against Dewgong 1-shots thanks to a critical hit, after which Aurora Beam 4-shots Cloyster thanks to another critical hit, after which yet another critical hit Aurora Beam brings Slowbro into the red. Then unfortunately Lorelei uses a super potion, but still only a couple more takedowns are necessary to knock out the Slowbro, leaving us with a full 2 takedowns, 5 rests, and 4 growls going into Jinx. Well, first, because we have so many rest power points to spare, and because Jinx presents so little threat to our health, we go ahead and use one of the rests to heal back up to full. Then something incredibly lucky happens, which is that Jinx uses Thrash. So because of that, we can actually stall out Jinx with rest until it becomes confused and hits itself for extra damage, thus potentially saving a takedown power point. And it turns out that that plan works beautifully because Jinx gets itself down to just over half health, after which one more takedown knocks it out, leaving us with 1 takedown, 2 growls, and 1 rest for Lapras. And now, I'll let Past Vanman commentate the remaining portion of this fight. Okay, we have 2 growls and a rest for Lapras, and a takedown. Okay, do I take down first and then rest? The answer is yes, because I want as much HP for struggle as possible. No, stop with the paralysis. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Oh my god! So needless to say, after that battle, I had to take a short breather and allow my heart to return to its resting pace. But now break time was over because we still have 4 more battles to contend with. So up next we have everyone's favorite hiker who by some miracle of God was admitted into the Elite Four. And guys, if any of you were ever looking for a reason to dunk on Bruno even more than you already have, just bear in mind that Ditto, by far the worst Pokemon I've ever played, the Pokemon over 5 times worse than Execute, the Pokemon who spent longer earning the Soul Badge than Zubat spent on the entire game, still managed to defeat Bruno on the first attempt. Well, let's see it in action. So, it turns out the strategy here is completely brainless, because literally all we have to do was open with 5 Hardens to boost our already massive defense and also badge boost our attack, and then select Rage, which in Gen 1 never runs out of power points. And not only that, selecting Rage literally locks you out of making all other decisions until the user faints or until the battle is over. So now, all we have to do is sit back and watch the battle play out before our eyes. And given our absurd defense, we even managed to finish the battle in green health, even in spite of several super effective attacks from the opponent. And not only that, it turns out that the reprieve from Lorelei is destined to continue because Agatha's opening Gengar is a fantastic Pokemon to transform into. Reason being that it outspeeds everything except the second Gengar, and Hypnosis and Dream Eater is a combo that inflicts super effective damage on her entire team, and also makes it so that we have plenty of HP to spare. Well, in the first attempt, Gengar and Golbat go down no problem, but then Haunter does manage to put us to sleep and knock us out before we have time to wake up. And in the second attempt, Gengar eventually confuses us, and we faint to confusion damage followed by Nightshade. But then on only the third attempt, we two-shot Gengar and Golbat with Nightshade in order to save Dream Eater power points until such time as we need to heal, then take out Haunter with Nightshade and Confuse Ray, with Haunter hitting us with a Nightshade of its own. And now against Arbok, since we're out of Nightshade power points, we go for Hypnosis, which takes 3 hits to land, followed by a Dream Eater to finish it off and heal back up to full. Then against the second Gengar, we open with Confuse Ray just in case, but it turns out that we didn't actually need it because we managed to land our final Hypnosis and finish it off with one more Dream Eater. And then guess what? Lance is a breeze as well, because Gyarados is also a fantastic Pokemon to transform into. And originally in this fight, I just wanted to test how much damage Hyper Beam would deal in order to calibrate my strategy for future attempts, but it turns out that the answer is all of it. And the best part is that in Gen 1, if Hyper Beam knocks out the enemy Pokemon, it does not demand a recharge turn. So against Dragonair, we get to attack right away, and I'm honestly not sure what I was thinking here, because against both Dragonairs, we go for Leer before we use Hyper Beam, even though Leer obviously wasn't necessary because Dragonair's defense is lower than Gyarados', so obviously that just gave each of the Dragonairs one turn to damage us before going down. Then Aerodactyl outspeeds and hits us with Takedown before fainting to a super effective Hydro Pump, but then my earlier Leer mistake comes back to bite me because Dragonite outspeeds and takes out our remaining HP with a couple slams. But then in the next attempt, I learned from my mistake and we one-shot the Gyarados, followed by the first Dragonair, then the second Dragonair, and then Aerodactyl without a hitch. Then just in case, we go ahead and Leer the Dragonite and then knock it out with Hyper Beam as well for the victory. Alright folks, it all comes down to this. 14.5 hours of continuous gameplay, well over a day of in-game time, 18 consecutive hours of streaming on Twitch. I began at 10 AM on Saturday. It's now 4 AM on Sunday, with one more trainer standing between me and the end of this marathon of a run. Let's do this. So, as with every rival battle, we open by transforming into Pidgeot, but unfortunately in this battle we don't have access to any status moves whatsoever. So our only options are either attacking moves or Mirror Move. Luckily though, we do outspeed everything except Alakazam, so if we ever do decide to use Mirror Move, we'll be able to do so reactively instead of proactively. But anyway, we first open with Sky Attack and Pidgeot survives on a sliver, and then we finish it off with Wing Attack and then go into Alakazam at high green health. Then Alakazam opens with a full health recover, after which we use Wing Attack to deal about half. Then I mistakenly go for Mirror Move thinking it would copy the recover, but since Alakazam outspeeds, it goes for Reflect and we copy that instead. Then since Alakazam's Reflect makes Wing Attack much weaker, we instead go for Sky Attack which knocks it out after it uses another Reflect. And now against Rhydon, since we already have our defenses raised with Reflect, we can afford to spend our Whirlwind power points so we have access to Struggle later down the line. But then eventually Rhydon uses a Tail Whip, which I decide to Mirror Move to make it easier to take it out once we start attacking again. But then immediately after that it goes for Horn Drill, which we Mirror Move and actually manage to land to knock it out. So upon realizing that that was a possibility, I then determined that that would be our default strategy against Rhydon for all future attempts. That is to say, first use Whirlwind until such time as Rhydon uses Horn Drill, then Mirror Move, then repeat that process until the attack connects. But moving on for now, against Gyarados we open with Wing Attack to deal about a fifth, after which a devastating Hydro Pump brings us to yellow health. Then we set up for Sky Attack, and then Gyarados fortunately leers to drop our defense, but also badge boost our attack and special. Then Sky Attack lands on the Gyarados and knocks it out. Then up next, Arcanine decides to cooperate as well as it possibly could by spamming Roar literally the whole battle, allowing us to knock it out with 2 wing attacks and a Sky Attack. And now, to demonstrate precisely why I had the rival choose Bulbasaur, we begin glowing for Sky Attack, then Venusaur uses a Mega Drain which does almost nothing, and then our final power point of Sky Attack lands on the Venusaur, taking it out in one shot, and finally making us champion of the Pokemon League. Results: Ditto completed the game in 33 hours and 3 minutes game time, 14 hours, 36 minutes, and 51 seconds real time. Conclusion: I knew going into this run that Ditto would take quite a while, but nothing could have prepared me for this. Before starting the run, my best guess for real time would have been around 8 hours, maybe 10 at the most, which is exactly why when I started streaming this run, I fully planned on being done by my usual bedtime. But nope, we stayed up until 4 o'clock in the morning. In the entire run, Ditto had access to exactly 2 strategies: Struggle or Transform, the former of which demanded seemingly endless training to be viable, especially in the case of Brock, Koga, and Sylph Giovanni, and the latter of which put us at the complete mercy of whatever Pokemon led the opponent's team, which was especially devastating against Gym Leader Giovanni and Lorelei. Additionally, Ditto's gimmick that it not only copies the Pokemon species but its stats as well, made all of our extra training minimally rewarding and maximally punishing, in spite of its necessity. Given Ditto's gimmick moveset, inability to capitalize on any unique skill, and complete and utter reliance on sheer dumb luck for hours on end, Ditto has quite obviously earned its place in the absolute bottommost pit of the F tier for Pokemon solo challenges in Gen 1. Folks, this Ditto run was an absolute monster. But as long as I can bring a sense of joy and entertainment to our awesome Pokemon community, that to me is a challenge well worth it. If you want to support the channel and motivate me to continue making these videos, the best way to do that is to give the video a like, and subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss another installment, as well as consider pledging on Patreon. Thanks so much for watching everyone, see you next time and take care.